Welcome. I'm Stephen Winnick of the American Folklife Center of the Library of Congress. For many years, we've presented the Homegrown Concert Series featuring the best in traditional folk music and dance from around the world. In the year 2020, because of the global pandemic, we shifted to producing an online video concert series, which we've been calling Homegrown at Home. So now in 2021, this is our second year of Homegrown at Home concerts. We have always enjoyed son jarocho music, a regional Mexican music style that has had a vigorous revival in California. So this year we were very happy to bring the son jarocho band Cambalache into our series. So today I'm speaking with members of that band. Now, one challenge that I have in doing these interviews is pronouncing the names of people from a wide variety of cultures. So rather than introducing people myself, I tend to ask them to say their own names. So if you could introduce yourselves to our audience, that would be wonderful.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sochi Flores, and I play, sing, dance with Los Cambalache.
My name is Cesar Castro. I also play with Cambalache, and I'm from Veracruz and live in Los Angeles.
So I guess our first question, during the pandemic, we asked people how they were doing, in that weird new life that we all had. And now we're sort of asking people how are things coming out of that? How are things emerging from the pandemic for you?
I think that things are emerging slowly for us, slowly but surely. In terms of the band, we, are doing more in-person events and stuff like that. But it's slow, and we're cautious, and we do a lot of school events. So, we have to be very careful. We test, things like that we never had to do before. But yeah, it's good. I think we took a lot for granted before that we're learning to be really grateful for now.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we can begin just by asking, the very basic question of what is son jarocho music?
Well, son jarocho is today the music of Veracruz, the Gulf of Mexico, but it's also the music of different communities in the world, in the US, in South America, in Europe, Asia. And it has a history in Africa, in the West Africa through slavery, and then North Africa through the Arabs that conquered South Spain for 8 centuries. So all that mix, imagine travels at some point in history to the Americas and lands in Veracruz, and we create this very joyful music. It's very rhythmic, very powerful, with strings, with percussion that doesn't include drums, with like congas. No, it's the percussion on the donkey jaw, on the feet,
Right.
on the tarima, and yes, we have one with skin, the tambourine, but that's what son jarocho is in few words.
I
Mm-hmm.
think I think that what Cesar said about the mix of cultures is important, but also like this human spirit, and the resilience that we have, and the need that we have to be happy, to express happiness, and to express our strengths through music and through dance and poetry and such. So I think, like, given the situation of it was a slave port. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
Veracruz was a slave port, and there were African slaves brought there. There were Spanish and Arabic, and so, like, there was a lot of conquering, and I mean, just like today, right? But
Yeah.
um, but this is a testament to the human spirit and the need to feel happy and to express happiness and joy.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it's an amazing music. It's just something that, I think everyone can enjoy just by hearing it. But within the context of the culture that's evolved sort of in both Veracruz and California, there is this event that people have called a fandango.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about the importance of the fandango for the son jarocho music.
the importance of the fandango. I can speak to the importance of the fandango here in the U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
but because that's my experience with it primarily. We use it as a tool for convening, as a tool for community engagement, as a tool for gathering and lifting up voices. Um, Ideally, it's a place where everyone is welcome, no matter your age, your gender, your sexual orientation, your color, your level of musicality or musicianship. Um, and we've cultivated spaces where you know it's often a place where that we don't experience any other place in our surroundings. But do you want to speak to a fandango in Veracruz?
Yes, of course. In Veracruz, it has the longest history.
Yeah.
That's where it emerges from this cultural mix, and it created spaces to gather, to express, to release. And a lot of it I find through the verses, the traditional verses, and the title of the songs, that there was so much oppression and fear that through the animals, they were singing about certain people, like the landlords, the
Mm-hmm.
old school landlords, the ones from the fields. So you find La Tusa, La Tusa is one of the El Canelo, like these attitudes, human attitudes through hidden, because
Metaphors.
yes, metaphors, but definitely hiding something,
Mm-hmm.
because if they hear you, they will kill you. So that
Mhm.
was another way to resist. And then when I joined the Fandango in 1990s, that wasn't we weren't conscious about it. We were more about getting together, celebrating anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we love to do. Celebrate, get together, eat, play music, but without knowing that we were also at the same time oppressing, especially women.
Mm-hmm.
So now, with the conversations and the interaction with other people, little by little, it's moving and getting, once again, I assume, once again, a good space that responds to the times of society.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and it's interesting that you mentioned both of those things. I mean, the fact of all those metaphors coding relationships
Mhm.
among people is common in other music styles too, especially African American styles, where
Mhm.
people had to be very quiet about those things, but they learned ways to say them. And the evolution of events like Fandango is really important to keep people, coming to the music and to expand the reach of these music styles. So it's wonderful that you brought both of those things up. One thing I've noticed in son jarocho music that you don't see as much in every style is that the dance is right there on the stage with the music. Tell us a little about the importance of dance to the son jarocho aesthetic.
Um, well, the dance is integral to the whole aesthetic because it is the primary percussion. It is the foundation by which a fandango happens.
Hmm.
There's no fandango without a tarima or people to stomp out rhythms, dancers. Um, so we use it because not every group. I think every group does use it. Huh?
Most definitely.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a drum. It's our drum. It's our heartbeat.
Cool. So yeah, Cesar.
Yes, I would like to add that's how, as what you said, that's how fandangos happen, with the tarima, but also it has this space limited to certain number of couples, which also balances, the the sound on a fandango, when you have too many dancers and handful of musicians, it would totally take
Hmm.
over.
Hmm.
So musically, estéticamente musical, no?
Mhm.
Hmm.
It has a touch. It's very very sensitive. Even though you see people just stomping really hard, but it's not just hard. It has to keep a certain level.
Right. Very
You,
interesting.
you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's something that you have to learn by
Oh
going to
yeah.
fandangos and just getting acculturated to that.
Yeah, there are nuances. It's very nuanced. It's very experiential. So like it's like you get up there. If you're a beginner, you don't get up there with another beginner. You just don't.
That's the formula for chaos.
Yeah, that's a formula for disaster.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So talk a little about the other instruments besides, the foot percussion, but what other instruments are a big part of son jarocho?
I would say jarana. It's no after tarima. You have to see jaranas, which is this strumming guitar. We cannot say 8 string or 6 string, seven. We count with courses,
Yeah.
even though some of the courses are not double string. So you end up with five, and you can have five double or all single if the instrument
Gotcha.
is small, and it's strumming.
Hmm.
Very rhythmic. It goes linked. Well, everything is linked, but this one is really close to the tarima. No? It's communicating um, because it holds the groove. It's pretty much like the bass player and the drum section, the
Right.
rhythm section. That's what it would
Mhm.
be. Jaranas and tarima
Hmm.
are very important. So they come in different sizes, depending of the region, depending of the musician. They would play the size they want,
Hmm.
and they're very loud. And usually there's a lot of them. The
Right.
ratio is 10 jaranas from one melodic guitar, which is called requinto. The
Hmm.
melodies can be carried by a melodic 4 string or five guitar plugged, or violin or harp.
Hmm.
Those are the main instruments.
Hmm.
And then the hand percussion, tambourine or donkey jaw,
Right.
are also very popular. More recently, they added the marimbula, which is a wooden box. You
Oh yeah,
sit
yeah.
down and you play the keys, metal keys. It's very, very low, undefined, and that would land in the percussion side as well.
Main base. Mhm.
And also some double bass, upright bass.
Hmm.
There are baby bass, like in Cambalache, we play with baby bass with Juan Perez, and that's it. Some regions they play a little guiro or a leaf, a lemon
Yeah.
tree leaf, but that's regional or by bands.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I love to see the variety in instruments. I mean, yeah, the jarana there's always a bunch of them, but it's great to see the harps and the violins as well, every now and then in those contexts. So, yeah, it's a beautiful music that as I said, we've presented it several times over the years. So we really like to have son jarocho. So, could you talk a little about the songs too, the repertoire that exists within this community?
Yes, there's two ways to read what we play, because there's the fandango repertoire and there's the band repertoire.
Hmm.
So it's not the same when you open a show that when you open a fandango. There's
Makes
a
sense. Yeah.
traditional song to open the fandango where you introduce yourself through verses, introduce your mood, your intentions, you share how grateful you are from being there, and
You ask for permission
ask for permission.
to sing, to be present.
Hmm.
So yes, you that's your chance. Also, um, you you communicate. If you lead the fandango, you have to communicate with the dancers either by reading the energy, just like a DJ. I always say, no, DJs know what songs bring everyone to the dance floor, but how long you're gonna play a fast beat song. So that's something that you have to be very sensitive, and that's how you run the fandango until you go to 3 a.m., 4 a.m. You play the slow jams at
Right.
five, depending of the time of the year. At 5, 6, you start playing the good morning songs,
Hmm.
and depending on how young you are, or You can play some songs at 10 a.m. after a whole night of having fandango.
Wow.
So Cambalache likes to keep it true somewhat to the fandango, and we play that song that Cesar was talking about, where you ask permission, where you introduce yourself. It's called Siki Siri.
Hmm.
That's the introductory song for a fandango, but it's also our opening song, son. But then we play traditional sones like La Iguana, Cascabel, La Bamba, but we do reinterpret verses. We do change the verses to reflect our reality, to reflect some of what's going on around us, some of what's going on with us. And that's the beauty of this music, is that we can do that,
Hmm.
and that's what keeps it alive and relevant today. So we do La Iguana, which is we do it. Our verses are about immigration and why people leave their homes, and when they leave their homes because life is tough, life is shitty, and then they come here and life is still pretty horrible.
Yeah.
And so we talk about that, and and we really do try to reflect our own realities in all of our songs,
Hmm.
our
And was
verses.
that, sorry, was that traditionally done also, that people would write new words for
Absolutely.
the songs?
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and you need to know
The form.
the form, definitely, and also depending of the song, the how would you use your metaphors.
Hmm.
Like in bamba, you improvise in a certain way. Then when you play like iguana, then you have to use the metaphor of like iguana. But there's some songs like La Culebra and El Cascabel. No, El Cascabel is the snake, and Culebra is how do you,
Snake.
another type. Anyway, they're different.
Rattlesnake is
Different.
cascabel.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
and people switch verses from one to the other one. It's like, hey, if you do that, then what's the point now? No? The challenge is sing about cascabel, and cascabel has the venom,
Hmm.
and the sound of the
The
tail like
rattle.
zzz, so come on, go for it. From there, take it. And,
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And it also shows there's sort of different levels at which, people can enter this, but, the masters have, their own rules and styles for doing things. And yeah, it's really interesting to be able to observe that and to hear you explain it, because this is something that I think our audiences would never necessarily have known about. Um, One thing our audiences would know, and you mentioned it earlier, is that there's sort of one Son Jarocho song that every American knows, right? Which is La Bamba, because of the Richie Valens hit.
Hmm.
Um, in the sort of revival of fandangos and Son Jarocho in California, was that a help, or was that a hindrance? Did that get in the way in terms of real Son Jarocho music?
Well, the fandango didn't come to LA the way we use it now until the early 2000s.
Hmm.
Before that, we knew son jarocho. We played son jarocho, but not the way we play it now. We played it the way Los Lobos play it,
Yeah.
which is the way we know it. The way we Chicanx communities grew up knowing it. We grew up dancing ballet folklorico, um, and so it was. I don't know if it was a. I think it could be a help because we're so familiar with the music and we loved it, but it could also be a hindrance because we knew it in a performative sense only. And so
Right.
it was kind of a two-sided coin that we were dealing with, and it really depended on the person and the people who were learning it and what they wanted to do with it. There were people who were like, oh, I'm going to start my group and just go off and do this, but there are people primarily who just want to be in the fandango, to be in the space. So yeah, La Bamba was like catapulted Son Jarocho into this stratosphere in a different way, but again, it was a performance, and it was not the way we play it. It was, I mean, at the end, Los Lobos do, like, Dave does that ding, 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 which
Yeah.
is, it's insane. And we love that. I mean, they're my heroes. So,
yes, I think they help
Mm-hmm.
No, because I come from a different experience, right? So I come from hating the bamba bamba. No, when I was in Veracruz,
Right.
it was like, no, that's the American way. That's the that's not the traditional. Because we
Right.
were revolutionaries in the '90s. That's how we felt.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Trying to to do the most traditional way, and we
Mm-hmm.
were going to small towns, to ranchos in the mountains and everywhere in order to get information from early 900s. So when you hear someone in La Bamba saying "Bamba Bamba," that was like no. But uh, 30 years after, 20 years after, everything got
Mm-hmm.
more calm. And I see La Bamba, the Richie Valens, Los Lobos version as a good reference for people to link. You know, someone who has no idea but they know that one is like, oh wait, and they feel that okay,
Mm-hmm.
now I know a little deeper into that song, into that culture. And if they saw the movie and they pay attention to the moment where Richie Valens supposedly meets on Jarocho, or if they heard Los Lobos and hear that last version, that
Yeah.
last part on, or if they actually heard the whole album and heard El Canelo, La Iguana, those are sones jarochos. So yeah, depending on the person, I think it helped.
Yeah, I think just this is my last thing about that. I think that Richie Valens did what he did with what he had available to him, right? Access to Mexico. He didn't have a lot of access, but what access he did have, he used it, and he killed it with that song, right?
Yeah.
And then Los Lobos too, what they had access to, the musicians around town who would teach them sones, they'd go to the guitar shops and just ask the old men who were there to teach them, and this is what they had access to. But when they like Los Lobos, I feel like opened so many doors for us, and like doors were open for them because they were like, playing it in a way that was palatable for the American public. But then they just busted the doors wide open for all of us, and they just were like, come on, come through, guys, and so we were able to like really stand on their shoulders and gain more access to Mexico and these other traditional ways of playing.
Interesting. Yeah.
A song from the 1700s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, right? And most Americans who hear that song have no idea how old it is or what it means, but
Or
it's
where it's
just
from
something, or where it's
traditionally, like
from. Yeah.
they think it's mariachi or something, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But there's just layers that people can go back and back, as you say, and find out more
Hmm.
about it. So yeah, thanks for talking about that. It's I know it might be frustrating sometimes to have that be the one thing people know, but what can you do?
No, no,
So,
no, at
but
least it's something.
yeah, yeah. And so one thing that both of you brought up, both in Mexico and here in the U.S., is the importance of son jarocho in kind of political consciousness
Hmm.
for different groups. Can you
Hmm.
each talk about that in both in Veracruz and in L.A.?
Go ahead, you go
Uh,
first.
okay, I'm living in Los Angeles, so my connection to Veracruz is through my friends mostly,
Hmm.
than being there in the last 15 years, even though I go every year.
Hmm.
But I hear the recordings, and you can definitely see the young people singing verses that you didn't hear
Yeah.
ever. They're writing their own, and feminism is a big one, and some of them are about the the corruption in Mexico, how bad the country had been because of all these thieves in charge of office. So that's what you hear a lot in the Son Jarocho. In the fandangos, only if you learn the verses or you are able to improvise, you'll hear some of it. But mostly in performance and bands performances, that's where you hear some of those new lyrics.
Hmm.
Still, they sing a lot about love, about nature. Some of them are about nature also being in danger. But yeah, that's a third one that I hear a lot. Concerns about the global health.
Yeah.
But Yeah, that's oh, Laura Rebolloso sang a lot about the violence and happening, when in the, 2010, 2006 in Veracruz. We got, sorry, I went down because I was leaving, and yeah, all that was happening
Yeah.
with the cartels. It was really, it had a phase where it was really bad, and Laura Rebolloso sang about it.
So all of that was kind of incorporated into
Yeah.
the
Yes.
contemporary forms of
And
jarocho.
just one more thing,
Mhm.
even if you don't hear it explicit through verses, the presence of son jarocho in spaces that are demanding something politically. So you'll see it in manifestaciones and marches, no,
Mhm.
protests. You'll
Hmm.
see son jarocho supporting those
Interesting.
struggles.
So even if
Yeah.
it's not directly in the songs, it's the music is there for the struggle
Hmm.
itself. Yeah.
Mm,
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that Son Jarocho has a long history of being a movement music here in the States, um, with like Los Alacranes del Norte, with Los Lobos playing like farm workers, UFW events and Chicano moratorium stuff. I think that it's always been present in all of the movement spaces, and but when we went, so I was part of a delegation that went to Veracruz in 2002, 2003. We went to intentionally meet with Jarochex musicians and community workers to really look at like what are the parallels in our lives in what we're doing politically and what we're writing and what we're painting or whatever, right? And so it was very intentional and very, politically pointed. So I would say that Son Jarocho here in the States right now is
Hmm.
a way to not just express your political ideology, but to be present politically. If you're not going to be, part of this organizing body, or you're not going to be at a rally, throwing up your fists, you'll be there with your harana, and so I think it's just politically, um, it's become a tool. There's people who just play it and just play it just to have fun,
Hmm.
but for the most part, everything I use it for has a political intention. Whether it be immigration, Black Lives Matter, um, gender equity.
Hmm.
It's a tool. It's another tool.
So that's yeah. I mean, and it's just really important to talk about the way in which traditional music styles can be uh, you know leveraged, I guess you could say, for these kinds of
Hmm.
things because
Hmm.
it's always been the case in folk revivals that people use them for this kind of political purpose. Now, one thing that's really interesting, I think, to a lot of Americans is that son jarocho is only one of a number of regional Mexican son
Hmm.
styles, right?
Hmm.
And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the distinctions, but also the overlap. I mean, because we've had Artemio Posadas at the library as an exemplar of son jarocho, but he's also an exemplar of son huasteco.
Hmm.
And so, how are those distinctions and overlaps managed in the community?
well, with the Spanish influence, let's say during the 16, 1700s, when this new part of the world was getting their own sounds, at some point it sounded similar, because I'm gonna say we all saw the same
Yeah.
instruments. We got the vihuelas, we got the harp, we got the violin. So that's where the music was called música de la tierra. This is a saying, or a way to define the music when you are looking at la tierra, the land, from Spain. Oh, that was like your backyard, your
Right.
new land, your conquer, where you invaded. So that was la música de la tierra. So that was when mariachi music sounded way more closer to son jarocho, where huasteco and música from Michoacán, Tierra Caliente, all that. It was, we were sharing also verses and forms. The song is very cyclical. It
Mhm.
goes in a short progression in chords and certain rhythms. But then through the centuries, each of us, we were getting a particular taste and style depending of other influences, not just the Spanish, but also the slavery, or geographically, if you are higher or lower, that changes completely your mood or your way to express.
Mhm.
So that's another fast way to to expose, how to explain, no, to
Mhm.
how the music of Mexico can be similar. Then mariachi gets trumpets and
Right.
arrangements. Then they separated their sound from son jarocho. But if you look for traditional mariachi music, you'll hear the guitars and violin, and
Yeah.
some of the huapango would sound similar to some huapangos in Zacatecas, and some huapangos even in Monterrey, where they play with accordion because they got accordion for another accident.
Right.
and and bajo sextos and all these big guitars that created their particular sound over the centuries. But if you track back very 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 traditional or original music, you'll hear a corrido or ranchera very similar to even a son jarocho. Let's not forget about Peninsula de Yucatan when they got trova, where they have the guitar. Guti Cardenas was in the early 900s. He was singing sones jarochos with Yucateco style, which are beautiful. He has a pájaro carpintero that I really like. Que goes,
Interesting.
el
Yeah.
pájaro carpintero, no, with another style. And then Oaxaca, no, el sureste, the
East.
southeast
Yeah.
of Mexico, Oaxaca, Guerrero, Chiapas. Chiapas is always a little different. Chiapas is deep.
Hmm.
Is
They roll
the
deep.
special, yes. But yeah, Mexico, you can travel just looking for music in Mexico and have a lot of fun for 10 years.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think the element that really distinguishes son jarocho here in the states, though, is the fandango.
Hmm.
Is the ability to participate in a fandango with very novice skills, a skill set. You know, you're still able to participate in something much larger and something very musical and something um, big. You know, I just and whole. And I think that element of fandango is what is what makes Son Jarocho so like intriguing and like attractive to so many people.
Great. Yeah. And that sort of leads into another question, which is I know that you do a lot of educational activities,
Mm-hmm.
both with the group, but also just individually. You do a lot of teaching. So tell us a little about those activities as well.
Well, we are part of the Music Center LA, the Music Center on Tour roster. So all like there's thousands of schools that are on their, I guess, on their radar, and so schools will book us, to come out and do assemblies for their students about the history of the music, the instrumentation, the sones, the dancing, and so we have, we do this whole 1 hour, pretty much an hour presentation on it with maps and scripts that we had to write. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it really does give the kids a chance to participate in something, but also to ask more questions like, hey, wait a second, what's my music? What you know what where did
Yeah.
ask their grandparents at home, what did you listen to? Do you know this music? And so we do that as a group. And then, I was teaching dance at the beginning of the pandemic. I was teaching dance online for, I don't know, a good 6 months. And then Cesar and the other band members teach in California state prisons. They
Hmm.
teach Son Jarocho, Jarana in the prison system. And they've been doing that for about 7 years. And Cesar also teaches at Occidental College. I mean, he can tell you all about his.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've been exposed to different places. So, the college, high school, middle school, elementary, and cultural
Centers.
centers,
Hmm.
uh, and private as well. Online was the latest. I
Yeah.
On my YouTube channel I have over almost 200 now. Yeah, I'm nine. Oh, I didn't count your classes, but over 200 sessions, interviews, which are also part. Storytelling is very important for me. If you go to my class, I'm not gonna be playing a whole hour. I'm gonna be talking half an hour,
Hmm.
of course, combined with playing. But yes, it's very important that students understand and they see some images of Veracruz, of fandangos. So that's part of my way of teaching, sharing the culture. That's what I tell them. It's like, look, I love this. This is who I am. This is where I come from, and I just want to share little by little with you. And if you get really close to me, you might get to taste some of the jarocho food that I can cook,
Even better.
or
Yeah.
travel to Veracruz, right? If you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
But yes, teaching is always a learning experience.
Hmm.
It's always different. It's especially in college. I've been teaching for 10 years now, and I see these different generations
Yeah.
coming, and they are different from each other. I'm liking these new ones. I thought I
Hmm.
wasn't gonna like it. I was afraid. I was like, oh, how's this gonna go now? But no, they're very open. I think these political times that they grew up with, more appreciative, very, very, very. It's also liberal arts college, but I can see the difference between the ones from 10 years ago to these ones. Unfortunately, I'm not going to high school anymore, but that was another important. I was going for how do you call it? Continuation high school
Hmm.
in an inner city school, and it was very, very, very interesting there too. The experience of teaching that youth,
Yeah.
see them engaging into music that when we had to perform, their parents would see them playing son jarocho. They come to me thanking
Hmm.
with this very special way that made me feel great. And honestly, to see how kids from kind of hiding themselves and being all cool and
Yeah.
tough, some of them, they became a group of friends, chilling, jamming. We would introduce our instruments. So anyway, teaching is part of our lives as well, and
Hmm.
we all do it. Juan Perez teaches bass. He's teaching our daughter now, but he also goes to state prisons. And Chuy Sandoval, he
Hmm.
teaches in elementary schools and prisons as well. He
Yeah.
went. Sochi
So,
was doing the
I do
reentry.
reentry. That's right.
oh
I did a
yeah.
lot of reentry work with former lifers, and
Hmm.
it was the best work. And we played harana, and then I would say, "All right, everybody, put down your instruments. We're gonna dance," and they would just stare at me like, "What?" I haven't danced in 26 years, and I
Yeah.
said, "All the more reason we're gonna dance." And it just broke down barriers. It brought joy for the 2 hours that we were there. It was just like, these people were just out of prison. Some of them for 40 years were like, supposed to be there for life. And they were, you know, they needed to be held and sat with and to celebrate with a little bit. And that's what we did. And it was incredible work.
Yeah. Such important work too.
Hmm.
What about the actual work in prisons, Cesar? How is that to go in there and teach people in those environments?
Yes, you'll be surprised that they are my best students,
Hmm.
and they're very disciplined. They're very engaged, appreciative, and of course, because they're in there and there was no program for so many years. I think it was for 20, 15 years they didn't have arts. So when we came back with with instruments, and whoever had the experience from before, when it disappeared, they were incredibly happy. And that's the challenge. You have to manage that energy. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
hold on. So let's make some noise. Yeah. Come on, you have 15 minutes to just have the instrument and look at it and do whatever you want, because they're so excited. But definitely, they have great memory. They
Hmm.
remember every single thing. They take notes, and when I have a chance to work more than 15 sessions with them,
Hmm.
you see how music starts happening in a different level, and the connection among them. Some of them might not talk to each other out in the yard, but
Right.
inside the class they are one, and they learn it. I don't have to say it, just because in the first classes you sometimes you get the ones who are just wandering around and seeing if they get a credit for just sitting down doing
Yeah.
nothing. I have no one doing nothing. There's no space for you to not do something to participate. So yes, we have some movement. Dancing, as Sochi said, it's hard. If you tell them, okay, let's dance, get up, no one is gonna get up.
Right.
'Cause no one is weak. Weak enough. So but if you tell them, okay, let's clap, okay, everyone can clap now, let's clap and stomp, and then they find it challenging. Oh, right, so now get up, let's do this, and move to your right and left, and when they don't know, they're dancing.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it becomes this challenge, this personal challenge of them, and at the same time they're developing motricidad, no,
Motor skills.
motor skills, and
Mhm.
musically musicianship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In- so it is very special. I like it. That's the reason I've been doing it for all this time, and it's never been dangerous. Just in case someone is wondering, oh my god, because I go to level 4, 3, 2, and 4 is the highest.
Yeah.
And what I find is the level 4 people are a little more challenging, because they went through rough experiences in life before whatever they did. No, that's
Yeah.
a pattern that we all know, also should know, that they weren't born that way. And and yes, when I went to that level 4, I saw the difference between those and level 2. But in the bottom is always very, very
Human.
human. Yes,
Yeah.
and rich. You can work.
I think
Yeah.
that the what we're doing in prisons, or what they're doing in prisons, what I did in reentry, was so contrary to what they have to be to survive in there, or what they're taught, or how they're treated. It like it reinstills this humanity and a sense of like, oh, this is another person. And I think that like that's the main thing, and they're able to let their guard down for 3 hours or 2 hours, and they're able to talk to people. Cesar told the story once where um, I think they thought there was going to be an emergency or a riot, so there was a they always have a sharpshooter around. If
Right.
you can just imagine, you're in a prison, you're kind of at the bottom, and there's always a sharpshooter kind of like around on top, just monitoring, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason, they said everybody on the ground. They put everybody on the ground, and the guy shot like one bullet in the air or whatever. So all the inmates are on the ground, all the students, and Cesar and the other teacher are not. We're not allowed to be on the ground with them. But Cesar said that while all this was happening, he saw two students, teaching each other the chords on the floor. And that was just beautiful. Like, it's just something that they were like, okay, yeah, that's happening, but we're here. We're still
Right.
here. We're present for each other, for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing
Wow.
story. Yeah. So, maybe we're doing this backwards, but so now we've talked about you teaching, but I also wanted to find out how each of you learned the music.
Mm.
What's the process, first of all, maybe in Veracruz, if that's where you learned, Cesar, and then also here. So,
Mhm.
Yes, I was 13 years old. I was a city kid from Veracruz. Is over a million people. Probably right now it's hitting 2 million people. It has different districts now. Probably three getting
mhm.
together. That's how much the city is growing. So I grew up like that. No tradition, no nothing. But once I heard this little guitar in the middle school because I was looking for a friend, and it caught my attention. And when I played it, I was like, "Oh, feels great. What is this? What's this little guitar?" And from there, I wanted to learn and learn just that little guitar. Going from that small room with few people, my dad takes me to Casa de Cultura, which is a cultural center in downtown, and that's where I met Grupo Mono Blanco, Gilberto Gutierrez, Octavio Vega, Ramon Gutierrez, and more people,
Mhm.
and that had a larger environment with women, older people, younger people, and I felt part of it. Okay, this is. I didn't know that that's what you call community or
Mhm.
anything. I didn't know any of those words, and I was enjoying that. There was dancing happening. There was requinto, jarana, and they also had taller de laudería, no, instrument making workshop.
Mhm.
So I was in a nice universe. So they took me to Fandangos. Once I went to Fandango in a countryside, small town. I remember getting there late at night. I didn't know where it was, but it was. I was familiar with ranch with because my family also comes from there, so
Mhm.
we would visit the rancho. But that was with Fandango. It was amazing. It was just magical, and that's when I remember just telling myself, this is it. That's it. I want to come back here as much as possible, and I did it.
Mhm.
So Gilberto and the other members of Mono Blanco, they were developing son jarocho fandango in different places from probably 6 years before I joined, and I would go to with them to those places. They invited me, and I was just learning from different regions, hearing conversations of my teacher with other elder,
Mhm.
and having whatever they serve, I would eat it or drink it,
Mhm.
and just assimilating everything. I wouldn't say no to anything, anything, and that's how I learned.
Mhm.
And I went to music school for 2 years to study cello.
That
Why?
did that give you some of the basics of theory at least?
Oh
Yeah.
yes, I kept
Yeah. Yeah.
going to private lessons because I
Mhm.
had to move from Veracruz, and yes, definitely it helped me,
Mhm.
and I
Great.
promote that too.
Mhm. Great.
So for me, I grew up here. I'm from here. My parents are from here. My
Right.
grandparents are from here. But we have strong roots, right? I didn't have a lot of contact with Mexico at all growing up, but I did have contact with Mexican music. And again, Los Lobos were part of my childhood
Mhm.
because I'm a movement kid. My parents were part of the Chicano movement in the '60s, in the '70s and '80s. I grew up at meetings and fundraisers and rent parties and demonstrations, and so the movement music and Los Lobos, Los Alacranes, the Aliens, all these guys were like playing music.
Yeah.
And so I danced ballet folklorico pretty much my whole life. And so it wasn't that it wasn't foreign to me at all, except that the way these guys were playing it was different. And I was like, oh, when I heard them play when they came to LA, I was like, oh man, this is amazing. And I didn't necessarily want to learn at that time, but my brother is a musician, Quetzal, and so he invited me. He was like, "Hey, come on, you're a writer," because I pretty much I wrote like grants for all the artists in LA. I'm a
Mhm.
grant writer. I'm a music lover. I didn't think of becoming a practitioner until I started going to fandangos, and I thought I can do this. I think I can play, and I think I can dance like this too. And so just with practice, Cesar taught me a lot. Rubio Ceguera taught me a lot of dance. Ramon Gutierrez, Gilberto, like all of them. I just learned from as many people as I could while in Veracruz. And then when folks would come out, and then I stole Cesar, I stole his heart. Um, and so,
Good
just kept
plan.
learning the last 17, 18 years, just been learning and learning and learning. And so
Ex-
that's my trajectory with it.
Amazing. And I should say for our viewers that not only do we have Cesar and Sochi on our website. We have Quetzal as well, your brother that you
Hmm.
mentioned. We have a concert that he was in. So look on our website for more from these great musicians. So one thing that's interesting was been touched on a little bit is that the Son Jarocho has these kind of markers in it of rural life, like the donkey's jawbone and those kinds of things. And yet here in LA, for example, it's pretty urban music now. So
Hmm.
how does that distinction get made, or how does that how do those markers fit in, I guess?
We still use them. We still, they're very much a part of our repertoire. We they're our foundation really, and then anything we add on, like Juan's electric upright bass,
Yeah.
or a zapateado pattern that's more hip hop, we just incorporate it. I think that we're pretty escuela when it comes to a son jarocho group. We follow the tradition in many 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 ways, and we respect it, but we also, I don't want to say toy with it, but we also kind of like bring another facet of
Hmm.
our chicanismo. So and our urban, we're urban, yeah, you hear Juan's bass and you do not hear like, oh, that dude's from the rancho. No, you hear
Right.
like that guy grew up in LA,
Yeah.
he's playing
Mhm.
Chicano music, playing with everybody. And but it's still a traditional sound, but yeah, with this twist or this like punch where it's like, we're here too.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that traditional music do that. So yeah. Yeah, Cesar.
Yeah, Son Jarocho had have the have had
Has had.
has had uh excuse but has had this interaction with cities since
Yeah.
back in the 1920s,
Yeah.
30s, 50s, 80s, 90s. So it's always, and jarochos before, they were uh I'm gonna me voy a atrever, no, I'm gonna
He's gonna dare to say.
dare to
Hmm.
say
Yeah.
they were they were more curious about playing even other music genres with their traditional instruments, which is another way
Yeah.
to challenge that traditional vest. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let me take it down and do something fun because I'm a musician first. So yes, that's something that we shouldn't forget. And back in the 70s, like Grupo Sacil from Mexico City, they were doing some jazz arrangements, playing son jarocho with drums. So that's another reason I have a podcast, so
Hmm.
the new generations can always listen to something that has been done. So when they come to son jarocho and they throw a djembe, it's like, oh, I'm innovating, I'm fusion,
It's
doing a fusion.
fusion.
Like,
No, you're
well,
not.
yeah, you can think that, but you're not the first. And if you want to
Yeah.
fusion, here you go. Listen to this, and these other
Yeah.
groups that already they've done something in your path. So yes, it's
Yeah, I think it's important to learn the tradition before you start messing with it. Like really learn it, really, have your teachers, have maestros, maestras, um, really like listen, do
Hmm.
a lot of listening first before you start adding your own elements. We add electric guitar too. On our second album, Constelación de Sonidos, Constellation of Sounds,
Hmm.
we added electric guitar, and there's a song in there called El Gallo Ramiro, which is a take on a traditional son El Gallo, where in the tradition they say, stop singing because you're going to get me in trouble or you're going to wake me up or whatever they say.
Yeah.
But we say, because we're from LA and we hear the roosters in our neighborhoods, we say, don't stop singing because you're reminding me of home. Don't stop singing because you're bringing nostalgia and this felicidad, this happiness to me that reminds me of a place that I yearn for, and I think with our electric guitar, and I think that's our way of paying homage to not only the music but also the people who had to come here to and left home behind, but tried to make home here and brought the roosters and whatever,
Right.
So
Right. So yeah, so we should, tell our viewers that you can find Los Cambalache online, and you should look for Cesar's YouTube channel as well as his podcast, and you should look for the recordings, because there's a lot of stuff out there where you can not only hear the music but learn a lot more about it. So I guess one more question that I have for both of you is, what are the future plans for Cambalache?
well, we're going to continue doing our teaching, because that really does give us life and literally livelihood. But also, like, I think, we're going to probably record again and see what happens. Really just try to keep evolving.
Yes, we're back in the tour and at schools that Sochi mentioned with the music center, and we are recording singles at this point. The whole album is very very challenging for different reasons. So we have this arrangement of La Manta, which is a traditional song, and La Manta is a piece of cloth.
Guitar or yeah.
Yeah.
And we use that to sing about Black Lives Matter, but talking to the people, especially Latinx, who don't get it. No, especially if you're an immigrant, if you're Mexican, I'm gonna talk for the people I can talk about. Like, Mexicans don't get it. It's like, whoa, why life, Black life? They start getting into nonsense arguments. So I'm thinking about it. Imagine yourself in this position, please. Like, put yourself there and understand why Black Lives Matter right now. So we're recording that one, and I'm hoping we can release it with a video as well. Chuy supposed to come today to start recording.
All right.
Maybe later today we'll do the bass. So that's where we are.
Good luck with all that. I guess we'd better let you go in that case, so that you can prepare.
Thanks for having us.
But
yes,
thank you for talking to us. And just to remind everyone, you can find the concert from Cambalache on our website along with this interview. So please do look for that, and all the other great Son Jarocho concerts that we've had over the years. So one more time, thank you to Cesar and Sochi, and I should say Cesar Castro and Sochi Flores, for giving us this interview, and also for performing in our concert series, both on the stage of the Coolidge Auditorium once and virtually in our Homegrown at Home series. Thank you both so much once again.
Thanks for having us. And thank you to
Steve.
Chuy and Juan, who couldn't be here, but who, are also here.
Absolutely. Thanks to them as well. It was a great show. So a great concert that you put on for us.